Well, good afternoon, good morning, or good evening, wherever you are tuning in from the world today, and welcome to the Trailblazer webinar, Promoting Careers Within Hospitality. My name's Eloise Hanson. I'm the editor at Boutique Hotel News. We are an online B2B platform for boutique, lifestyle, and luxury hotels. A quick overview of some webinar guidelines. We're going to spend around 45 minutes in discussion with our panel today, followed by some time at the end to take any questions from the audience. So our audience, if you do have any questions, please submit these using the Q&A function and I will keep my beady eyes on them. And as a reminder, this webinar is being recorded and every single registrant will receive a copy of that recording within a couple of days' time. One of our sponsors today is Aperto Guest Technologies, and we're going to play a short video from them.
The only thing better than knowing you're onto something good is knowing you're onto something better. Better insights into bookings and property details. Sustainable energy management that protects your bottom line and the environment. Simplified messaging between teams and guests. Content creation tools that grow and monetize your guest experience before and after they check in. And that feeling of, I've got this. Aperto Connect, your guest experience reimagined.
Further information about Aperto has been popped into the chat if you would like to find out more. Now, unfortunately, Früda is unable to join us this afternoon and he does send his apologies. However, the show must go on and I'm going to hand over to each of our Trailblazers to introduce themselves. I'm going to move from left to right as per my PowerPoint slide, which means, Kim, I'm going to begin with yourself, please.
Hello, everybody. Very excited to share this session with you and our panelists. I'm a communication trainer, so I help people connect with whoever they need to get through to. And that usually means looking at how they speak, looking at their presentation, sometimes looking at their voice, sometimes looking at how they manage their meetings, how they get ready for videos, how they do webinars and all of that. And I have a great collection of my tools here in the right kind of loud. That's what I call my method. And I'm very excited to hopefully support everybody here today to get some more confidence and clarity about what you can do to find your right kind of loud.
Thanks, Kim. And suddenly I'm thinking, oh, if I combed.
And I realized that was not my intention. You're doing great. I thought that this is not nice. You're doing great.
Thanks so much, Kim. And Sam, I'm coming to you next, please.
Thank you, Louise. I had no trouble in worrying about what my hairstyle's doing today, so that was an easy win for me. Good afternoon, everybody. Sam Coulstock, Head of Professional Development at the Institute of Hospitality. We're the professional body for the industry. We've been going for 83 years, and I am 4 months into post. So I'm looking forward to spending some time with you all this afternoon.
Welcome, welcome. And Mikail, I'm coming to you next, please.
Yeah, hi guys, nice to meet everybody. So I run a consultancy company called Urban Hospitality Concepts, which works with owners and investors on new concepts and pre-openings, mainly members clubs, but also quite complex concepts. I've been always in hospitality my whole life, really 23 years, since the age of 16. And I'm originally from Berlin. I started at a very low position back then and worked through the ranks in London and Berlin. So a long journey, a lot of ups and downs, but I guess we're going to touch base on some of those later.
Yeah, I look forward to hearing your insights, Mikail. Thank you. And last but not least, Greg, I'm coming to you last.
Hi everyone, thank you Eloise first of all for hosting this. Really excited to have a conversation with you all, and yeah, thanks for everyone tuning in. So my name is Greg. I'm Director of Partnerships at Saira Hospitality. We're a non-profit that creates pop-up hospitality schools around the world that offer free expert-led hospitality training to local communities. The idea being that, you know, there's a there's a wealth of talent outside our front doorsteps as hoteliers, and we try and find the best way to effectively source, train, and then retain that talent. We've been working around the world for the past 6 years with some incredible brands like Rosewood, Virgin Limited Edition, and Standard Hotels. And excitingly, yeah, we're launching our first school in London next year in spring. So we're looking for hotel partners at the moment, and I'm excited to, yeah, kind of break down a few of our kind of ethoses, few of our kind of goals as well, and we'll touch upon those throughout. But yeah, it's exciting to be here, and thanks again for having me.
Oh, you're very welcome, and thanks all for joining us today. So our second sponsor for today is Cvent, and once again we have a very short video to play for you today.
Hello everyone, I know that you're very eager to join the Boutique Hotel News webinar. And before you do, I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about an event that we have coming up. My name is Carla Pierce and I'm a senior manager for marketing for Cvent. And as you know, Cvent looks after hoteliers and planners, marketers to help them power their events. And in the case of hoteliers, help them bring leads for their MICE business and business travel. But this particular event is an in-person seminar. Yes, in person. The in-person events are back, and it's going to be on the 17th of November from 4 to 5:30 p.m. It's going to be at the London Pullman St. Pancras. It's going to be hosted by our Vice President of Sales, Graham Pope. And I wanted to tell you why this event is for you. We're going to have great insights into the state of MICE and transient business in the UK and a little bit of Europe, how to make your hotel be visible online, and how you can learn, to use technology to help you offset and reduce your reduced workforce. You will also be learning about the latest solutions to reinvent your meetings and events now that your buyers' expectations, meaning the meeting planners, have changed after COVID. So we're really looking forward to see you there. The best thing is that after that, we have another networking event at the St. Pancras Renaissance, which is just next door to the seminar. That starts at 6. And the best thing about this is that a lot of meeting planners will be there from our client side on the Event Cloud side. So we're really looking forward to see you at the event. You will find the link on the webinar, but we're very excited to see you on the day. So thank you very much.
And as Carla just mentioned, further information has been popped into the chat if you would like to follow up on these. Now, if you haven't joined one of my webinars before, I always like to offer some context to our conversation, and they're just screen grabs of stories that myself and my colleagues have published on Boutique Hotel News. And I'd like to highlight on this slide 2 examples of how some hotel groups are championing hospitality careers, and these are the 2 left-hand stories. So we have Resident Hotels, which has recently partnered with Springboard to help achieve the goal of having 10,000 young people trained and ready for work in hospitality by the end of 2022. And similarly, the Devonshire Group has launched its own academy to offer 18-month training programs that will lead to level 2 apprenticeship qualifications. Now, you could argue here that the industry, or that industry recognized qualifications, has the potential to professionalize the industry. And I believe this goal was one of the motivating reasons that a petition to create a UK Minister for Hospitality first circulated, because in some European countries like France and Italy, hospitality is perceived as aspirational. Now, on the next slide, I would like to highlight some statistics from a survey that the Burnt Chef Project published in July this year. Now, work-life balance was cited most as a barrier to working in hospitality, and most commonly noted as the reason for leaving. Unsociable and unpredictable hours were a barrier to 1 in 5, whilst salary and stressful working environments were also cited as a barrier amongst 1/3 of respondents. And the majority said that feeling valued would help to improve recruitment and retention in hospitality. Now, There are some other examples on this slide of how companies are trying to add that value. So we have in the bottom left-hand corner a partnership to help protect migrant workers in the tourism industry. And in the top right-hand corner, we have others that are increasing the rate of pay per hour. And I would like to take this chance to suggest that there's an opportunity to add value via the in-house recruitment process. And my reason for saying this is that a very quick Google search lists hundreds of local hotel jobs, almost all of which are promoted through agents. Now, I think, is the time to rethink old strategies and pay attention to the employee journey. Which brings us on to our main conversation today. Let's talk about promoting careers in hospitality. I'd like to begin with a question to Sam, please. Sam, could you give us a general overview of the current staffing and recruitment challenges?
Yeah, gosh, where to begin? I think that it's a situation that I've never experienced before in my time in hospitality, and I don't think many people have. I think there's talk of people saying this is the perfect storm with Brexit and with the COVID crisis, the industry being closed down for so long. And I guess they're right in some that degree, but also this has been going on for decades about the perceptions of hospitality seen as a low paid, no career progression, something you do whilst you're at uni until you get yourself a proper job. And we all know, and we're talking to the converted here today, so I don't want to labour the point, we all know that that's not true, and that there are some amazing careers to be had here, and you know, you can have a lot of responsibility at an early age. It's an industry that's open to everybody and all of that. So we know that situation. If we just look at the minute of the UK as a whole, we're not alone in facing a current careers shortage or a labour shortage. So we currently have a record high, according to the Office of National Statistics, of about 1.1 million vacancies in the UK currently. Accommodation and food service activities nearly equate for half of that. So we do cover for a huge amount of the increase of vacancies are coming from our sector. The good news, the other side of that, is about 1.6 and 1.67 million people are currently unemployed in the UK. So obviously we've had the end of the furlough scheme. So that means we've got a big gap between vacancies and we've got a labour market out there, and we just need to bring the two together. We're also facing a huge a challenge, I guess, in that apprenticeships as well are seeing a real struggle in recruiting people in especially level 2, so the entry level positions. So that's a concern that we're facing. However, we do know that when young people are on an apprenticeship, they rate them as excellent or outstanding as a method of training. So again, there's a message there to say, you know, where are we in promoting that as a viable career option to people coming out of school and universities as a route into the industry. But we also know that retention is a problem within our industry, and that people come in, they do a few shifts and then they go again. So we are in we're not on our own in terms of a recruitment shortage, and we know that, you know, the lorry drivers have been very vocal to government about saying, you know, there's not going to be enough turkey on the shelves, there's going to be no gammon on the shelves for Christmas if you don't give us more lorry drivers, and hey presto, they've done something about it. So I think we do need to be a little bit more vocal to government, but also we do have to sort our own house out first, and make sure that we are an attractive industry to come to people to work in, and we know 99.9% of the industry is, and we really need to shout and showcase that. And I've got some ideas about how we can do that. Hopefully we can share that later on, but yeah, it's not a pretty picture, but we're not on our own, I think is the overriding message of that.
Mm-hmm. And I would like to pick your brain, Sam, and ask you exactly what ideas do you have? How can the industry help to improve some of the statistics that you were talking about, and help merge those two groups?
Those two worlds, yeah. I mean, first of all, I'd say we are fixated on this industry about creating careers, and rightly so. We are very much a career for life. You know, this is a career you fall in love with, and absolutely a career. But all careers start with having a really good job at the beginning. So I think, why don't we just focus on right now giving people a good job to do? And I meet with hoteliers and the industry all day, every day, and recruiting managers, and you know, they see a really good person, but they can only do a shift 1 or 2 days a week. But they're really good. They're the right candidate. But the hiring manager turns around and says, well, it's five days or nothing. That's all I can offer. Why are we still thinking in that mentality today? Because guess what? People have a life outside of work. You know, they might have hobbies, they might have family, they might want to do other things, they might want to study. So if someone's really good and they want to do you for 2 days a week, work with you for 2 days a week, take them on those 2 days a week, develop them, and then find somebody else who wants to do 2 days a week or 3 days a week, and hey presto, all of a sudden you fill that role. But you've got somebody who wants to be there, and who probably, once they're in and they're embedded with you, will actually then go on and do more shifts with you because they actually really enjoy that job. When they're in with you as well, let's make that experience fantastic. Let's make sure that they really, really love the place where they want to work. Let them make them feel like a rock star when they walk through the door, and they leave all their troubles outside. Because if they feel like a rock star and they feel absolutely that they are valued, they've got the leadership, and they really want to be there, guess what? They're going to give a really good experience to your guests, your customers as well. So let's give people some really good jobs. So the first point, I would say. Secondly, we know, and all the research that I've looked at shows that parents are the biggest influencer over somebody's career choice. You can forget all your social media, you can forget everything that you are that you've ever done in the past in terms of marketing and PR. It's the parents that will make the decision for those young people that are making that career choice decisions. So we need to get to the parents in schools. And there are some great programs out there to do that. I would encourage you all to go and look at Springboard about their ambassadors program and getting into school in that route. Absolutely, first place you should go. I would also encourage you to have a look at something called the Careers and Enterprise Company and volunteering your time as an enterprise advisor. Now, I do this. I do it for 2 schools. It's a voluntary role, but I work with the school on this strategic leadership team within the school around their career strategy. And that's where you're working with the school to look at what are they doing at every level within the school around careers. And guess what I can able to do? I can infiltrate hospitality all the way through that, through my network and my contacts. So just working with those 2 schools, then all of a sudden you get asked to do a parents' evening, or can you come along and talk to our parents? There I'm talking to 300 parents in one hit. I've got a captive audience because they want to know what their little son or daughter are going to go and do after school. As soon as you mention hospitality, you can see all the lights and the cameras going off on the webinar. But you know, you've got that attention of those parents. So we all know we need to go and talk to young people in schools. Yeah, everybody says this. I go on so many things and they're telling me this, but nobody knows how to. So there's some ideas of how to get into schools. You can't just rock up to the school gate on a Monday morning and go, can I come talk to your kids? Because they'll probably phone the police and say, we've got some weirdo at the school gate wants to talk to our kids. You have to do it in a strategic way, just like, and you have to do it to the benefit of the school with the added advantage. So what's in it for the school, not what's in it for you. Okay, you want to come talk to our kids about careers in hospitality. So what? So does the construction industry. So does IT. So does artificial intelligence industries. They all want to come and talk to our kids about working in the industry. Go in there with a strategic aim. I want to support you on something called the Gatsby benchmark. And I can support you by bringing in speakers at every level within your school. If you say Gatsby benchmark and Ofsted in that sentence to a school, it's like saying to a hotelier, I've got a really bad a TripAdvisor review that you need to read, it sends a shiver down their spine. Do exactly the same to the schools. What's important to them? What's going to work well for the school? You've got a solution that will help them. So just a couple of tips there that I think will really help us. I mean, imagine if everybody in hospitality took on one school each in this country, we wouldn't have a recruitment crisis. We would be seeing the influx of every young person wanting to not to go to university, not wanting to go and do anything else, but just want to come and work in hospitality. Maybe too simple than that, but you've got to start somewhere, hey?
On your first point there, Sam, Deval Carter has popped into the chat. Great point. We are competing with the new gig economy that gives people the flexibility they need or want. And I know flexibility as a term or even a theme has been so important over the last 20 months or so, which brings me on to one of my next questions to Greg, please. We've also highlighted that retention has been a long-standing challenge of the industry pre-COVID. So, Greg, bear with me, how can retention be improved?
It's a big question. It's definitely something that it's not a simple answer. I think it's, like you say, it's always been an issue. At the moment, there's a giant spotlight been shone on that. Just as Sam said, you know, the phrase "the perfect storm" with the pandemic and Brexit. It's really kind of, shed a light on just how much we're suffering due to that. And I think, I mean, I'm having conversations daily with hoteliers who are telling me that their general managers are, you know, flipping bedrooms or pulling pints behind the bar at the moment because they just don't have the staff in their own establishments. And I think our approach to kind of aiding retention comes back to the kind of talent that you're sourcing. And from Saira's, you know, kind of point of view, like I mentioned at the start, you know, we really focus on finding those individuals who may have been overlooked traditionally by the hospitality sector. So initially trying to find those that have the propensity to stay for longer. And what we found from all of our work around the world is that, you know, the individuals who may never have had that opportunity will just have the propensity to stick around for a lot longer. They'll be a lot more brand loyal, and they'll also kind of really take on that role as a bit of an opportunity that they otherwise wouldn't have had. Obviously, it's then down to the employer and the hospitality brand themselves to give that individual opportunities within the role and within that organization to grow and develop. And I do think flexibility is a really big part of that as well. When you talk about the stats that you mentioned at the start with individuals, you know, people wanting to have that work-life balance, I think it's really important. But yeah, from our perspective, it's really about kind of finding the individuals who otherwise wouldn't have had the chance. So Saira specifically, we're working with, working with charities that look after refugees, youth empowerment centres. We're looking to work with individuals who've been previously incarcerated or at risk of going to prison. And effectively having kind of a community focused approach to this, we think is the best way to source staff who will stay for a bit longer. I want to say a bit longer, you know, hopefully we mean a lot longer. Our kind of, our history and our stats from working around the world have shown that that's the case as well. Kind of Saira's average turnover when working with individuals from these backgrounds is around 13% year on year. And I think, you know, the industry average is up to around 50. So it does show you that if you're seeking to work with the individuals who will really take that opportunity as a chance, it'll give us a better chance to keep them within those roles.
Mm-hmm. And we've already touched on some opportunities for attracting a new talent pool. I mean, Sam's mentioned tap into schools, look at the parents. Greg, you've just highlighted those that are perhaps from, say, disadvantaged backgrounds, or those that have previously not had the opportunity to be given a step up in hospitality. But where else are the opportunities now to attract that new talent pool, Greg?
I think it's like I say, you know, if we're talking about our particular experience at Saira, it's definitely looking at those places, that individual where we haven't been looking, you know, in the past. I do think that Sam's got a great point as well of looking at, you know, going to the parents and going to the schools and really trying to promote hospitality as this career that's yes, it's something that's exciting and enjoyable, but it's maybe not as fixed and as rigid as everyone thinks. I think that's a really good point, and something that needs to be pressed upon people too. And it's definitely something that we're interested in bringing into our own schools and our own curriculums as well, is that idea of, you know, it's not what you expect it to be as a career. And I think that's something that needs to be shone through. But yeah, from my perspective, I do think it's looking at those individuals that just have never had the chance before. And I think it's a really exciting opportunity for brands, especially at the moment, to look at, you know, I think what we're looking for from service now is so different from maybe what brands were looking for 5 years ago. And I think, you know, you can have the individual who's maybe got a bit more of an attitude or a bit more of a kind of, you know, personal approach to service. I think it's about combining what the brand values are of the partners who are looking to source the staff with then the kind of individualities of these people, and kind of celebrating that individuality. And that's really what our schools are about. It's trying to kind of refine that, find the individuals who basically got that hospitality gene, which we're all sourcing and we're all kind of looking for within the hotel world, and just trying to polish that up a bit and kind of bring them through with the right training and education. That's really kind of, you know, our focus. And to round that off, it is just those people that haven't had the chance. So I'll go back to it, you know, it's refugees. I think we're going to be seeing a lot more opportunity to help those individuals. We know that there's, you know, a lot more refugees are going to be coming to this country, which is an opportunity for us to be there waiting and receptive to them, to help kind of just give them an opportunity and a chance. And I think it's really exciting. And that's kind of the focus of our school in spring next year, is to kind of be there waiting to help those individuals and kind of, yeah, develop them further.
Great. And Mikail, I'd like to come to you next, please, for my follow-up question around the employer-employee relationship. How is that being reshaped as a result of what's happened over the past 20 months?
Well, some really good comments, by the way, Sam and Greg. Really, really good to hear, and completely agree with almost everything you said. In terms of leadership, I think, in my opinion, it's very simple. As long as you feel valued and you learn, you won't leave. You know, people work for people, and it's always been this way. People move on if they don't feel appreciated, if they don't learn, and it doesn't matter at what level. You can be a waiter, a bartender, or a general manager. If you don't learn, you move on. So, you know, also, I think this means leadership absolutely should be people-centric, with initiatives also around physical, mental, spiritual well-being, as opposed to traditional training programs that every company has in place. It needs a bit of a different approach, and to take care of people in a different way. I also think authoritarian leadership style is very old school. It doesn't work with the new generation of young people at all. They don't respect you because of your title, your power, or your rank. You know, young people buy into you when they get to know you as a person. So actually, as funny as it sounds, you got to be, the toughest part for a leader, I think, is to be entirely yourself, which is also the simplest way of having an impact on the team. And, you know, the whole leadership approach and style should change.
Whilst I'm with you, Mikail, we had a question come through from Harvey Sandhu asking, how can you guard against heavy staff turnover? I know you yourself has worked within the industry. So perhaps you will know what it means to.
You know what, it's like, I've worked in places over 23 years where turnover was very low and very high. So it's very obvious. But like I just said, it always comes down to a very simple formula. If you're valued and people appreciate you and you learn, you won't leave. People want to progress, you know, everybody wants to be productive and learn and move on. So, but that it sounds so simple, but it's obviously, but it is more a culture. It's not a job of a GM or an HR manager, although they're the driving force. It is the culture that should spread throughout the company, where everybody needs to sort of speak that same language. And this sort of stuff, you know, has an impact on staff turnover. I've probably, in my entire time, probably remember 5 inspirational leaders I came across in all these years. So as bad as this sounds, but you come a lot of uninspirational leaders across in the industry. And so this is also the reason why everybody leaves and maybe not even returns back into the hospitality industry, because you had a bad experience. So it all comes down to leadership.
Mm-hmm. And you've touched on how one of the qualities and values of what makes a good leader, but do you think the definition of success has shifted alongside this too?
Definitely. I think many people talk about long hours, tough conditions, low pay. Having a 75-hour work week used to be impressive. Now, it's not anymore. Balance is impressive. Managing mental health is impressive. You know, people are more open about their personal and mental achievements now. They talk about failures as part of their rising up and about determination on the face of the challenges. And also, I think part of the old school British culture was always not to talk about any of these things. But we're finding it's actually changing, and people are able to mix, and diversity is more welcomed rather than sort of fitting in.
Mm-hmm. No, I totally agree. I think there's been some brilliant efforts and great strides towards what we call internally the work-life harmony, rather than balance, because it is about making an environment that people can absolutely strive in. And I've seen hoteliers over LinkedIn you know, post and publish changes that they've made internally to their business and their organizations that has a great strong focus on the mental health and well-being of their employees. At the end of the day, people are our greatest asset. And if we don't invest in them, they will likely move on, which is the sad reality. So Kim, I'd like to loop you into the conversation here, please, to talk about, you know, actually when you're in your career or you're working up your career. And I'm looking at the junior professionals within the industry at the moment. How can they confidently communicate with their seniors?
So first of all, I just have to say it's such a pleasure to listen to all of you. Sam, Greg, Mikail, I'm feeling educated and I'm so aligned with so much of what you're saying. So it's very inspiring to be here. Yes. So when we are speaking to someone who's senior to us, we tend to internalize that as a way of thinking that I'm less important, or, you know, like he or she doesn't really want to listen to me, or we just have a lot of butterflies because it's just high stake. So what happens when we are in a situation where we're nervous or it's high stake, we get a lot of butterflies. And so the impulse then is to speed up. The butterflies, they kind of travel from, you know, shaky knees, you know, butterflies in the stomach, heaving, you know, you start hyperventilating, maybe it goes into your voice. And then of course, worst case scenario is a blackout, you know, when it blocks the frontal cortex. That's the journey of the nerves. In the world of nonverbal communication, there are some signals that we are sending that are high status or low status, you know, and if you are speaking to somebody who is your senior, you want to come in with high status signals yourself to kind of own your own leadership. And so of all the different signals that we have, the one indicator that is most important is to be calm, like you are right now as a webinar host. I'm just enjoying, like, you're sitting there, you're pausing, you're present, you're grounded, like we are feeling that you're with us and that you're calm. And so it's interesting because, you know, one of the things that a lot of people are struggling, for example, is you're speaking at a meeting, you have X amount of slides or points left, and the senior says, okay, rush up. Then it's easy to start speeding through those. So a behavior that will increase your status and actually your confidence is to say, well, I understand now because of the agenda or because of the timeframes, we need to wrap up this point. I'll send these slides over to you, or I'll ask for 20 minutes next time we have a meeting. And the interesting thing is that that's what the leaders do, and that's usually not what the juniors do. And so it's that kind of like, it's the slippery slope of starting to adapt those behaviors that will make you, you know, step into your leadership. So definitely taking your time, not speeding up. And then also when you're speaking to seniors, audience awareness is everything for any communication situation. So do you know your leader? I coached a a young hospitality professional in Dubai a few years ago, and she was like, my boss doesn't listen to me. He just doesn't listen to me. She was very upset, and she had all these great, she was working at the Ajman Kempinski, and she was like, it doesn't work. And we talked for a while. And then after a while I said, so when do you speak to your leader? And it turned out that she would sit at her desk and she would just kind of shout through the room when she had an idea. And I was like, my dear, you know, imagine a little bit what it's like for your manager. Figure out when it's a good time to talk to him. Is he a kind of a lunch chatter? Does he like a WhatsApp first? Would he like you to come with a little extra tea? Like, the more you know the one that you're talking to and their preferences, their channel preferences, their timing preferences, their concerns, and is there a way for you to connect with something in their personality or something in the work profile that they care about and show that you care about the same topic? It's they are not your bosses, they are their stakeholders. So approach it more as a stakeholder than a boss.
And I'd like to ask the same question, but almost reverse it. So what about from a senior or a C-suite perspective? How can they effectively empower teams through communication?
And so now I'm going to link back to some of the things that Mikail, you were saying, because you are very aligned, you're very right kind of loud in your approach. So I usually say that finding your right kind of loud is finding a way to show up with your whole self, or with as much of yourself as you like. There's a continuum between professional, personal, private, and we're all moving on this continuum. And in these days, because we are all on social media, we have LinkedIn, which is professional, and we have all the other channels and Twitter, etc. So this whole thing of what is private and perfect is very fluid. And of course, I had a session a while ago for some Googlers, and when I said showing up with your whole self, one of them was like, what do you mean? I'm employed here. I don't want to, like I actually have a life, talking about work-life balance. So this can all be, it's something that is interesting to look at. However, just like Mikail was saying, like if you are a leader, people will want to follow you and will be inspired by you when they know your values and when they know what you care about. So definitely, I want to echo that. And then also, it's your job as the leader to create psychological safety. And so there's such a difference between espoused values and values in action. So espoused values is we really value the input from our employees. And then what is really happening, that's the values in action. Very often there's a glitch. So what does safety look like? And how is honesty, how is honesty then responded to? So there's a lot of kind of cleaning up your own backyard. How are you showing up? And then people, we like to be invited in. We don't like to be told stuff. Even if you're the manager, ask them, don't tell them. This is, like if you're a webinar host, welcome people to write something in the chat. Don't say, I want you to write in the chat. Who are you to tell me what you want? I want to be welcomed. I want to be invited. And you can do that and still be professional.
Not that easy. Not everybody gets it right,
Very few people do. And unfortunately, because of power structures and hierarchy and a lot of things and cultures and cultural, very often there's a misunderstanding that the leader is there to be served. The leader is there to serve.
Yeah, that's right. And it's also
so there's a service confusion very often. Like a good leader is there to serve his staff, to empower them, to make them rock stars, like you were saying, Sam. That's a true leader. And the funny thing is, when you do that, your team will do anything.
That's so true.
And then when you try to push them, they're going to be like, they're going to hold on. It's such a strange, and it's a lot about mindset. So I mean, depending on cultural codes and a lot of other things. Yeah. So Mikail, we are very aligned.
Yeah, it took me years to get to this point. Obviously, when you're in a leadership role, you've got so much responsibility. You run a business, you've got your 10 head of departments, your 100 employees. Everybody looks up to you. You're under a lot of pressure. So you do use your rank and your power and all of this, obviously, in your day-to-day. But I worked in a company where I ended up talking only about private stuff, probably 70% of my time, even more, all day, every day to everybody. And it opened so many doors, access to everybody. Everybody sort of became quite relaxed and open-minded and opened up to me. And so I ended up running this business in a very sort of almost like private, personal way, if that makes sense. But it was a very relaxed culture. Obviously, you still need to, be productive and get things done. But your day-to-day language is actually completely gone from the professional side. And like you said, it's all blurred.
It's the continuum, right? It's the continuum. And then I have a friend who's a great leader. He's a manager for big teams. And when somebody comes to him and says there's a problem, his answer is, okay, so what would you do? He just says, what would you do? If you give people ownership, they become very creative. Instead of, so this is a problem, why haven't you? Just, so what would you do? What do you recommend? So like, true. It's the ownership piece. When you give people ownership, just like we've had also, like you said, Greg, right? People want to feel valued. They want to grow. I mean, we are innately like development people. Like nobody wants to go to work and just tick a box. So there's so many different things that we can do. And I think, honestly, the big piece is for the leaders. Yeah.
I know Harvey's just popped into the chat. Mindset is everything. Positive approach to deal with problems and take responsibility. I know that Sebastian Bazin, the CEO of Accor, recently said that his greatest learning from the past 20 months was actually how brilliantly skilled his own team and staff were, and that him taking responsibility was actually handing over to those that really bloody knew what they were doing. And he handed them the reins, and they basically kept the business afloat. So it's touching on everything that you guys have been speaking about today. And I'd like to ask Sam my next question, please, to look at now HR teams, right? What advice would you give to an HR team that are onboarding first timers in the industry? If we are looking now to attract a new talent pool, it is likely that we're going to be looking outside of those that have not worked in the industry beforehand. And how can these first timers perhaps accelerate their training?
Yeah, first of all, big shout out to HR teams up and down the country, because I think they have worked extremely hard over the last 2 years during the pandemic lockdowns. It's not been easy for them, and now coming out the other side of it, we need them more than ever in our hotels and businesses to do what they do great. And I think we can have all the policies in the world, which, we can look at to attract people into the industry and to retain them. We can, and some of that is some low hanging fruit as well, that's easy to pick, that we just need to get right to give them that rock star feeling when they walk through the door. So, it's not just about improving the pay, which we've seen happen, which is, I always think, oh, great, pay rise, great for the first month, then what? You kind of get used to that level of income, and then you start spending it and you're back to where you was. So pay isn't everything. It's nice, but it's not the silver bullet. It really has to be a mixture of things, I believe. So practical things like better shift notice, is great, because, who knew people had life outside of work? They have a family and they have hobbies, and they like to do go and see their old nan and have tea with her on a Wednesday afternoon, or take her to the library or take her to the shops or whatever. But you can't do that if your shifts are sprung on you or they change irregularly. So I think better shift pattern is better, but better shift notice, at least if you do still work in a shift environment. Providing some job security as well, I think is great to be able to offer people. You might be on a temporary contract or a 0-hour contract, but give them some security that you're not just going to be on the books and never be used, that there is some security there as well. And also, as we approach another difficult time in the year, You know, whether we're now in plan A, are we going to plan B, C, D, E, F, Z, X, Y, Z, who knows where we'll end up. And that makes people nervous in jobs. And the people that get affected most in any type of the lockdown will be those that are at the entry level positions, that are the lowest paid people in our society. And they will be affected mostly by it. So we need to give them some sort of job security, that if this does happen, you know, we've got you, we've got your back, we're going to look after you. And you're not going to be dumped straight away as soon as something happens. And putting into place a ladder that allows workers of all ages the capacity to learn and grow in that as well, and then they can progress that throughout their working lives. So it's not just the people that are entering the industry, but also people that are already professionals from top to bottom, that the only way we're going to make this industry more professional is that we all continue to learn and grow and have that professional development throughout our careers. So it's not just about throwing money at it. Money's nice, but it's not the answer to the problems. It's a combination of things. It comes back to culture. It comes back to the leadership and empowering our teams, like we were saying just a moment ago, to lead and make that right decision. I'm very good friends with a chap who runs a coffee company in Suffolk, and he doesn't have a recruitment crisis at all. He's like, what recruitment crisis? What where's their problem? He empowers everybody from the barista right through to the finance director to make the right decisions. You know, you know the business better than anybody else. You're empowered to make the right decision. You have that leadership skills and qualities, and that works. And he retains his staff. He retains his best people. But he tells a really good story where he noticed that the coffee shop, that one of these particular coffee shops was open Monday to Friday, was open 7 days a week, and he noticed that the team were getting a little bit tired. So he went to them and said, "Look, guys, what can we do to shake things up here?" They came back to with a proposal that they would close Saturday and Sundays. Now, most leaders would laugh them out the door and going, "I'm the laughing. You're a hospitality business. We have to be open 7 days a week." But they made the case that their business does drop off a little bit at the weekend. So if they could make up the revenue that they lost on Saturdays and Sundays and build that into Monday and Fridays, could they close at the weekends? And Monday, the first week they done it, it was a complete disaster. But he stuck with it. Week 2, complete disaster. Week 3, they absolutely smashed it, and they're continuing to smash it. What that does is that he's empowered his team on the ground who knows the business best. They haven't lost any revenue. The team now know that they've now got every weekend off, so it firms up their shift patterns. They know what their time that they've got, and they feel really great about themselves because their proposals worked, and now they feel like rock stars. So that's why he doesn't have a recruitment issue. So it's looking at, you can't always do what we've always done, because we'll always get what we've always got. What we've always got is not good enough anymore. You need to do things differently. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, Eloise, but hopefully some more insight into what's going on out there.
I totally agree that now's the time to be doing things a little bit differently. I've seen other examples of hospitality businesses that have either reduced their trading hours because they don't have the staff to do so, but then there are others that have reduced trading hours to protect employee burnout, to protect the well-being of those that are very much on the floor. And so that is definitely a great example of a leader who can identify what is needed. I'd like to ask Greg a question about the role of brand image and values. I mean, I understand, Saira, you identify the right employee for a right brand partner. So do you think that brand image and values is going to play a big role in attracting new employees?
Absolutely. Excuse me. Yeah, I think now, so more than ever as well, employees want to feel like their employers understand and kind of take action on the big issues that we're all faced with, whether that's sustainability, whether that's equal rights. I think it's a really, really key cornerstone to why people choose to work with their employers. And I think something that we do at Saira is we really try to understand, first of all, the brand values of the partners that we're working with. So in London, we're going to be working with up to 10 different hospitality brands who are each able to source talent from the school that we're creating. So it's really important for us to understand what is important to that brand from a company culture perspective, from a values perspective. Excuse me, frog in my throat, not COVID, I hope. And effectively, it's really important for us to understand the company culture and the company values, as I was saying. But it's also really, really important to nurture that kind of personal brand within all of the students that we're bringing through the school as well, because I think, Kim made an amazing point earlier on that we can't be forcing our own kind of thoughts or values on anybody. I think we need to be kind of coherent in kind of having an open relationship with that. So one of the modules that we have within the school is called building your own brand and understanding your own brand. And that's something that, as we're bringing these students through, it's for them to understand what's really important to them. I'm sure they know it. It's about kind of eking that out and then matching that with the same values that the hotel has on their side. And mention kind of sustainability and things like that. I think being privy to that and helping to nurture those kind of big issues that people understand and people are really kind of passionate about. An example that we had when we were working the BVIs a few years ago was we were working with a combination of different hotels. Again, it was Rosewood and Autograph Collection, and it was just after Hurricane Irma had happened. So the big spotlight again was on sustainability and environmental issues. So the hotels came to us and said, look, we'd like to build in a sustainability module within the program so that these entry-level workers that we were training could effectively understand a little bit about how, even at the grassroots level, there's small changes you can make that will make a big impact. And I think showing the students that the future employers cared and registered that sustainability was a big issue and they'd seen that. I think when we were bringing through those individuals through the school, they were so much more excited about working for those brands because they understood that they cared about the issues and they were devoting time and finances into actually, looking into that problem. And I think, in short, it's huge. I think, me personally, whenever I've worked with brands in the past, it's always been really important to understand what their values are. And if I don't see them being aligned with myself, then I don't think it's a particularly good match. So I think our role in this training and development kind of program is just to try and match that up as close as possible. And like I say, we do that by really listening to both the brand and listening to the talent and seeing where the crossover is there and then effectively matching that up as close as we can throughout the school.
I think
I'm just going to chime in and say, Louise, are you aware that there's a question from Harvey in the chat box?
I am not.
No, so and it's not because I don't want to hear more of Greg, because Greg is such a wonderful guy. So it's just because, the audience has asked something.
Absolutely. So what are your thoughts about hiring VAs from abroad? VAs, virtual assistants. I'm going to assume what that abbreviate. Yes, Harvey, you're quick to respond. This is what we like. So who would like to take this question? What are your thoughts about hiring VAs from abroad? I mean, Greg, do you see that as fitting in within your structure at Saira Hospitality?
It's not something that we are looking at the moment. I mean, from a personal perspective, we do have a virtual assistant. I'm based in London and our virtual assistant is based in the US. So it's maybe not particularly relevant for the actual hospitality brands itself, but from our perspective, it's very useful. And, she's an amazing kind of, member of the team. I think, I might just pass that one on to anyone else who's had an experience in the past with employing that, because with regards to the hotel side of things, we haven't necessarily done that within our schools. We haven't really looked into that, to be honest.
Mikail, I might ask your thoughts on that. Obviously, having worked feet on the ground in a hotel before, what are your thoughts about hiring VAs?
I'm struggling a little bit with this one because I have not really experienced working with a VA at all. Ever. So, I'm going to pass it on to someone else.
So I'll give you I'll try and help you out here. So I think sort of like any assistance, first of all, is welcome, right? Okay, so whether that's from abroad, whether that's virtual, or whether that's physical assistance is welcome. What I would say though is, what is hospitality, and make sure that we don't divert away from that principle. So when we boil down what is hospitality, that is, you know, being nice, being welcoming, and giving that experience that is memorable, that will make us all come back time and time again, or Instagram it or tweet it or whatever we might do to talk about our amazing experience, right? What I think technology can do is just help in that process to speed things up and to make us a little bit more productive in that activity. So I know this is boutique hotel news, and I'm going to talk about a fast food chain, so bear with me. But a really good example of where this works is, and probably you're all going to never say, never me, Gov, but if you've been into McDonald's recently, okay, there you have these really big screens. You go in, you order your Big Mac and your chicken nuggets or whatever from the screen, and that takes away that human element. And you think, oh, okay, so you go down, sit down, you have your table number, and then your food arrives by a human, and that is a more of a personal service. They might have a little chat with you, they might explain about allergens or whatever it might be at your table. Now, to me, that's a perfect way of using a virtual assistant or technology or whatever you want to call it, because what it does is it speeds things up. It puts the labor in that restaurant, in the kitchen, to make it more efficient. So they don't reduce the labor costs. What it does do is make the process sufficient. Now, what people might say is, well, we need to be as good as McDonald's. Well, the answer to that is we probably needed to start that 10 years ago to be as good as McDonald's in that efficiency, because they've been ahead of the curve forever in this sort of field. So whatever your views are on McDonald's, even if you're just going for a coffee, try it out, because it works and it's brilliant and it's a really good system. So that's where I think you can use virtual assistants much more efficiently in our hotels to speed the process up, but it doesn't take anything away from the customer experience.
Thanks, Evan, and thanks for bringing to my attention, Kim, because I think it's quite a contested topic around the use of technology within an environment that is such a high touch environment as hospitality. And I think some people think that the technology is actually replacing the staff members, when in actual fact, as Sam has explained, it's rather enabling processes to become much more efficient and ultimately therefore drive greater customer satisfaction at the end of the day, which again is what hospitality is too also about. Mm-hmm. I'm just looking at the time and it's gone past 3 o'clock. We have fast approached our allotted hour, so I must wrap up, but thank you thus far for everyone's contributions. I'd like to highlight a webinar that I'm hosting on the 4th of November in association with Hotel Solutions Partnership. I know, Greg, you mentioned sustainability earlier. The topic is ESG in hotel investment and finance. Is it now time to walk the walk? And the link to register for this webinar has been popped into the chat. It would be great to see all of you there. And the Urban Living Festival is finally here, 2 years in the making, and it's launching tomorrow in London. We're bringing together urban innovators from across hospitality and real estate to map the future of where we stay, live, and work. And on the second day, I am going to be hosting a discussion around digital transformation and understanding today's guest, exactly what Harvey's question was touching on there about the adoption of technology within accommodation. And it's not too late to secure your tickets. we have a 20% discount code for attendees. The link is in the chat, and once again, it would be absolutely fabulous to see you there on Wednesday. And if you would like to hear further information about the event or any of the webinars in the Trailblazer series, do get in touch with my colleague Katie. Her details are now up on your screen. So that is all from us. Thank you so much to our Trailblazers for their insights. Thank you to our sponsors, and thank you to our audience. We are going to leave the chat open for an extra 2 minutes to allow you to follow up on any of the links that we've popped in there. And I do encourage you to connect with our Trailblazers and carry on the conversation, because there is still so much more to be said there. However, thank you all once again, and I look forward to seeing you all very soon. Take care.